My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today I want to talk about the government shutdown. I'm recording this on November 1st, and today is the day, supposedly, that the WIC and SNAP programs are going to be running out of money, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. So who's at fault for the government shutdown? Well, I guess it depends on what you want for this government, what you want for the people, and what you want from the United States, right? So let's take a look at what each side wants. So the Democrats, they want to have affordable health care for Americans. They also want to keep or at least parts of the Inflation Reduction Act, which it caps and lowers drug prices and extends health care subsidies. And the Democrats are also fighting for the changes in Medicaid that the Republicans want. Now, the Republicans, they want to end subsidies for the Affordable Health Care Act. Now, why would they want to do that? Well, first of all, they don't like the term because Affordable Health Care Act really is the Obamacare. And Trump has had a problem with Obama's name being there because he succeeded in doing something good. And so he wants his name not to be there anymore. But does he have a better health care plan? He does not. He just wants to eliminate Obamacare. And of course, he wants to get rid of the Inflation Reduction Act because that was from Biden. So what he's essentially doing here is that he's going to be raising people's drug prices, and he's going to be putting 24 million people in jeopardy with their health care. Now, I've been hearing that people's health care is going to be going up, say 200 to 300% in some cases. And I thought, well, that seems a little bit much. Like the average American's not going to believe that. Until just this week, I went to go see what my new health care plan was going to be. And yes, it has gone up 250%. That is something now that I have to pay. So thank you, Republicans. I thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart for raising my insurance for absolutely no reason whatsoever other than that you don't like the term Obamacare. Now, here's the other problem. A lot of people are not going to be able to afford health care. And that causes, obviously, a lot of other problems to our American citizens. The problem is also that the fewer people there are who can afford health care, there's less people in the pool. And in doing that, it increases the prices of health care. So this is a lose-lose all the way around. So if we want to say who's at fault, blame the Democrats for wanting people to have affordable health care. All right? You can blame them for wanting to be decent human beings. If you want to blame the Republicans, blame them for wanting to take away health care from people. So if you're on the side of the Republicans, ask yourself why you would want to do that and why that's a win for you, right? It doesn't make any sense to normal, decent people, but, you do your thing. So here's something interesting, right? The Republican position here, and this is coming from the USDA, which is the U.S. Department of Agriculture, who obviously Trump has his finger on these government agencies now. But from their website, they say the Democrats want health care for illegals, and they want the extra money for gender mutilation procedures. Now, here's where we have a problem with education in this country. Like, does anybody actually believe this? And the truth of the matter is that, yeah, a lot of Trump supporters, cult followers, whatever you want to call them, they will just go along with that. But here's some truths for you that you have to know. And if you don't like my truth, again, we don't live in a world where truth doesn't matter, but you can look up stuff and avoid the truth. I get that. But the truth is that illegals are not eligible for the Affordable Health Care Act, number one. Number two, illegals are not eligible for SNAP or food stamps. Number three, illegals are not eligible for WIC or women, infants, and children. And this whole gender mutilation, listen, I don't know what their fixation is on this, but it's ridiculous. I can talk about that at another show, but let's not for today. So if you have a good policy that you think can help the Americans, then just say it. You don't have to lie your way through everything, because the more lying you do, it makes me believe, or anybody with half a brain, that you're lying because you don't have an actual plan for people, not to be helpful or positive at all. This is something else that I would say, and I can back it up. Here's another truth. Republicans don't care if SNAP or WIC is funded, because Trump's, what he calls the big beautiful bill, it was already there they passed this. It's already there to cut back on Medicaid. It's already there to cut back on SNAP and to cut back on the ACA. So with the government shutdown, they're already getting what they want. So then it leads you to believe, like, why are we even doing this in the first place? And it's because the Democrats, for once, are standing up, and they're trying to cause a fight here, because they've already given up this, right? They're already going to be cutbacks in all these areas. But now they're fighting for people's health insurance not to go up 200 to 300%, like mine just did. Now, if you're a Republican or a Trump supporter or a cult follower, why do you want my health insurance to go up 300% and many other people's and 24 million other people to be in jeopardy here? You need to ask yourself that, as you walk around thinking that you're a good person. Here's something about why the shutdown might be happening. Because somebody asked me this, but even before the shutdown started, when it was being threatened, they said, do you think the government will shut down? I said, absolutely. They said, how long do you think it'll last? I said, I don't know. It could be indefinitely, because there is no incentivized reason that I could think that Trump would want to open up the government. Because again, his bill was specifically there to cut down on all these programs. So who cares if he doesn't fund them at all, right? And the other thing is that once the government is open, Adelita, I can't pronounce her last name, Grijalva, I think you pronounce her last name, she's going to be sworn in. And that's another reason why they want this government shut down, because they don't want her to be sworn in. And they've been holding off on this. Now, once she is sworn in, she's going to be able to force a vote on the Epstein files. And that is something to be talked about, because he was best friends with a pedophile. Now, a lot of these victims have already mentioned Donald Trump by name. Now, and he's already been on the flight log like 7 times, so there's obviously a problem. Now, a lot of these Republican and Trump supporters were all over this about Epstein this, Epstein that, needs to be released. Now that Trump's name is all over it, all of a sudden a lot of them are backing off. Interesting. This is cult follower type of activity, because you want to hold everybody else in the world responsible, but you don't want to hold him responsible. And it's really odd that when we talk about people, let's say on the SNAP program, which, by the way, most of them have jobs, we say, well, how many people are ripping off the government? They need to be held accountable. And it's like, yes, but when we're dealing with a guy who has 34 felonies, who's an adjudicated rapist, and is tied to a pedophile here, we give him a break. So spare me that you actually care about anything here, right? It's not about funding of WIC and funding for Medicaid and the SNAP program. You don't really care that much. I can prove that to you too. Because, here's a weird fact. The SNAP program is not set to run out of money on November 1st. There is a contingency fund that's always been there. It's basically a slush fund when they can use that money to fund those programs. Now, Democrats have already tried to pass a standalone bill to fund WIC and SNAP. In other words, let's bypass this whole thing where Republicans are trying to take away people's health care. Let's just have that fight to the side. But let's open up the government, so to speak, in some ways, and allow poor people, by the way, Republicans trying to starve 42 million people. So the Democrats put forth a standalone bill to fund those programs. And what happened? Trump not interested, Republicans not interested, nothing happened. So you can't say it's even the Democrats' fault for shutting down the government and therefore WIC and SNAP are not getting paid now. Because you can do that with a standalone bill that they said no to. Okay, so that's the fact. Now let's talk about SNAP just for a little bit here. 1 out of 8 Americans need food stamp assistance. So what does that really say? When we start saying about our fellow Americans that they're lazy and all these other negative words you want to say on people who need food stamps. And by the way, most of them have jobs. If 1 out of every 8 people needs food assistance in the United States, you can say that we are the richest third world country in the world and be proud of it. Because we have a tax structure that allows the rich to get richer, and then we destroy the middle class, and then we have a nice poor class here, a huge poor class, where we just have negativity and we hate them so much, and we have so much negativity to say about them, that people in the poor class even start to learn how to hate themselves. They've internalized their own hate. Only in America. This SNAP program, it averages out to be about $6 a day. That's it. That's what we're complaining about here. $6 a day. And by the way, it's an agricultural subsidy. So when you go to your stores, like I've got multiple stores around me, but one of them especially, at certain times of the month, you can see there's more people with food stamps that go there. If they don't have access to food stamps, guess what? The supermarket's not going to do very well. They're going to make less money. So what does that happen? What happens from there? They're going to raise the prices on the people who do pay. And so again, inflation goes up. Now again, supposedly, these Trump supporters voted him in because it was the economy. It was only that, right? So you're blaming illegals, which again, they're not eligible for food stamps. But you wanted inflation to come down. Well, this time last year it was 2.3% and going down. All right. Well, now it's 2.9 and going up. For the Trump cult follower, 2.9 is higher than 2.3, meaning that inflation's going up. But when we start to look at other things, such as healthcare, again, healthcare going up 200 to 300%, car insurance going up, house insurance going up. When we start looking at whether there's inflation or not, yes, inflation is going through the roof. At a time where the job numbers are so bad and have decreased so much since last year that Trump fired the head of the labor statistics. Because that's what you do, right? You fire somebody. It's like if I don't do good in a bodybuilding show, instead of training harder and eating better, I just get rid of all the judges, right? Like, does that make sense to anybody? It shouldn't. So let me end with this real quick. Who's at fault for the government shutdown? If you're a decent human being and you want people to have affordable health care, you want women, infants, and children to have food. You want people who need food stamps to have them. And you don't want that. You want to fight against those things. I don't know how to help you. Your maliciousness, sadistic, psychopathic, sociopathic, put in the words that you want. You're so enthralled with your dear leader Trump that you will do anything he does or says, and no matter how many people he screws over, even if they're in your own family, so he doesn't have the Epstein files to be released, or he gets to knock down all this money for poor people who need it so he can fund the rich. He's the opposite of Robin Hood. He steals from the poor to give more money to the rich. And today's not a show to do this, but take a look at how many of these world's richest people and how they're cutting back, and how many people they're firing and laying off in their companies. And yet they make billions and millions of dollars by the day. And yet they're firing and getting rid of people in this economy, and you're saying it's okay? Learn how to stand up for yourself. Stop standing up for a rapist, felon, fraudster, billionaire who inherited over $400 million to get where he's gotten. Let's grow a backbone and get back to having a real United States of America. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.